We meet in an hour of change and challenge, in a decade of hope and fear, in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
So today we're here with Raymond Okrofu, Ghana country manager at SafiSana, former board member. He's now a technical advisor at the German Development Corporation. Raymond, it's fantastic to have you here today. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Of course. Now, you have a background in agriculture. You shifted to environmental science. You're one of the country's leading experts in energy. Tell us about your background. How did you get your start? How did you end up where you are today?
Great. Okay, so like you rightly put it, I started with agriculture. My bachelor's degree was in agriculture from the University of Cape Coast. So I started working, first of all, as a trade unionist with the trade union movement, the Agriculture Trade Union of Ghana. Then along the line, I got a job with a UK-based company known as CO2 Balance. CO2 Balance is a carbon credit organization. So there's a link between agric and carbon credit or clean cooking. Mm-hmm. So that was the link that took me to environmental science. So I took up a course in environmental science, and then I became an environmental expert. And that also shifted my focus a little bit to see what can be done for the environment. And I found myself in waste to power. And that is what took me to SafiSana Ghana Limited, where I became a board member and a manager. So that's my linkage. So in SafiSana, we're doing waste to power. So using municipal solid waste and fecal waste to generate biogas and use the gas to produce electricity.
That's fascinating. We will get to SafiSana in a moment, but before we do, we have many, many listeners of the podcast who aren't as familiar with subregions in Africa as others. We're specifically talking about Ghana today. It's located in Western Africa. It's on the coast of the Gulf of Guinea. The country's long been seen as a role model for the African world. Congratulations. It is your journey that you've made this possible. And it's a fairly sizable country as well, 28 million inhabitants, half of which are living in cities, I believe. And it's a bit smaller than Oregon, a bit larger than Idaho. So listeners, there's your context. Raymond, you've witnessed firsthand Ghana's advance to clean energy. What has that journey been like for you?
Yeah. Well, it's great. Adam, now the population of Ghana is a bit over 30 million now. So
really?
We are growing.
Yeah.
Yes, a little over 30 million now. Yeah. Okay, so the energy transition in Ghana has been really, I would say, dramatic, because just about 5-6 years ago, Ghana was grossly energy deficient. We didn't have enough energy at all. We even have a word that is coined out of the challenges we went through. We call it doomsaw. Doomsaw simply means power on and off. So we were doing load shedding. Sometimes you had power for a day, and then you are off for 48 hours, and then you get it for maybe 24 hours. And then in local parlance, we call it doomsaw. So that has been, in fact, we went through that for about 5 years. And it was very, very hectic. It had a lot of negative influence on productivity, had a lot of negative influence on growth in general. And in fact, the whole country, nobody liked it. It became a huge political issue until somewhere the middle of 2016, the country started signing a number of power purchase agreements that made a lot of independent power producers to enter into the market. And today, the story has completely changed. It's completely over. We have overcapacity in Ghana. We are producing almost double of what we need as a country. And the excess, I'm sure we'll talk about that one along the line, but we have a lot of excess power now in the system. So that has been our journey.
Let's break that down a little bit. So before, were independent power producers legally allowed to operate, or was it a new initiative? And because of a new initiative, there was so much development that you got to the point of oversupply.
Yeah. Okay. So traditionally, Ghana has depended heavily on hydropower. We had two big hydro plants that was supplying about 60% of the need of the country. In fact, it used to be 100% from hydro until we had a few thermal plants to add to the hydro. Now, in 2011, Ghana also developed the Renewable Energy Act, which is what also made way for people to or independent power producers to come into the market with some amount of renewable energy. So the overdependence on the hydro actually made it difficult for us to have enough power. And also between around 2010 to 2015, there have been massive growth in industry. And then Ghana also we want to be one of the countries with the highest energy penetration. So we're connecting a lot of our rural areas onto the national grid to absorb a lot of power from the system. So there was a huge shortage of electricity, and that is what created the challenge.
Okay. Now, it's curious, though, if Ghana has such tremendous oversupply of energy right now, my understanding is that it's one of the countries in the region that has the highest costs of energy. That doesn't seem to harmonize well. What's going on with the market?
Yeah, that's a paradox, actually, Adam. We have a lot and actually in excess, but the market isn't that friendly. The cost of generation of this power is very, very high. We have a situation where some of the independent power purchase agreements we signed were signed in a rush because we're in a rush to come out of the challenge we had. So some of those agreements or contracts were not did not actually go through proper due diligence. So the cost of generation is so high, and it has to be passed on to the final consumer. There's also a paradox where we have a lot of rural communities connected onto the grid, where these communities are consuming electricity, but most of them don't have a lot of money to pay. So there's cross-subsidization of power from the government. So you see that there's the power sector is hugely subsidized by industry to pay for residential use, and all that makes it very, very difficult to manage the power sector properly. Now, another reason why this cost is so huge is that Ghana has about 85% electricity penetration, which is one of the highest in the sub-region. So people are even predicting that by 2025, the whole country will be connected to the grid. Now, there are some instances or some places that are really difficult to reach, but we have extended the grid to all these places and use a lot of money to buy transformers and equipment to get to those difficult places. And all that is a lot of cost, which is brought onto the final user. So these are challenges we have in the system that is accounting for that.
So if industry is oftentimes subsidizing the high cost of electricity, specifically for rural, residential, difficult, low-income areas, that almost has a counterproductive effect of stymieing industry growth, which is required to help local populations get jobs, have income so they can pay more. So what is that political dynamic and debate in the country? Are people saying, oh, we have to right-size the system, we need to change the tariff structure, or is that not something that's currently being discussed?
Definitely agree with you, Adam. That is a great discussion now. The industrial community, led by the Association of Ghana Industries, is the biggest trade association we have in Ghana, are seriously agitating for this to change. It was a political issue in our recent elections we had in December. This issue was heavily debated, and I am very sure that in a very short time, this issue is going to change. There are also a lot of independent power generators that are trying to give different financing models to industry players. So some of this is putting a lot of pressure on the managers of electricity. And we are very sure that it won't be long, the situation will change, because we think that it should be the other way around. Residential users should rather subsidize for industry, or if nothing at all, everybody should pay for the power they consume, not the other way around, so that industry can grow and the country will develop.
How are prices set in the country? Is there a system where there's an open market? Can independent power producers, if they find an industrial cluster or a large industrial off-taker, can they contract directly? Similar to Nigeria, they have the willing buyer, willing seller schematic. Is there something like that in Ghana, or is it different?
Okay, so there's a mixture of situations we have in Ghana. The law for renewable energy works differently from that of conventional power, and then at a point they also converge. So like I mentioned, the Renewable Energy Act was passed in 2011, and it gave some feed-in tariff for different categories of technologies. So there's tariff for solar, there's tariff for biomass, there's tariff for wind, tariff for all that. Then that gave the likes of SafiSana to enter into the market and generate power connected directly onto the grid. And there are a few renewable energy companies that are on the grid. Now, for now, as I speak to you, just around November, December last year, the law has been amended. So for now, we don't have, of course, you can imagine the situation we have now where we have excess power. We need to regulate more production of electricity so we can make use of what we have now. So this law has been amended to not to give a blanket opening to people to just enter the market and produce. So now there's no feed-in tariff. Any independent power producer has to go through competitive tendering. So the main power distributor, the electricity company of Ghana, has to request for the power, and then independent power producers must tender and then go in. So the one with the best terms, gets to produce the power. So this is what we have for renewable energy. It works differently for the thermal and the other ones.
Okay, so you mentioned industry earlier. What are a few of the largest industries that use the most electricity in Ghana?
Okay, so we have some steel industries. We have mining. There's a lot of mining going on in Ghana. Lots and lots of mining industries are taking place. And then we also have some aluminium companies also in the industrial hub of Ghana, and they are also doing a lot. There are also a bit of agro-processing companies also consuming a lot of electricity.
So hypothetically speaking, then, we're going to say that you are leaving the energy industry, Raymond. It's been great to have you here, but you have identified an opportunity to be the CEO and founder of Raymond Steel Aluminum Inc. And you're going to need a power generation equivalent of 50 megawatts annually, megawatt hours, whatnot, to make sure that your facility operates effectively. Can you build this on your own? Can you have an IPP supplied directly to you, or does that IPP have to get a tender issued that they can then reply to?
Okay, that's a great question, Adam. So the law gives that leeway to companies or to industry up to a certain threshold. I'm not very sure about the threshold for conventional electricity, but for renewable energy, I think it's up to 500 megawatts. You are allowed to do your own generation, but beyond then, you need to go for a license from the regulators.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you're going to start your electricity required company in the industry and steel. I'll start an IPP and we can go hang out in the capital. That'd be great.
Yeah, sure. That's great.
So let's skip over the German Development Corporation for now. We'll come back to that. You mentioned SafiSana, which I think is an absolutely phenomenal and fascinating project. You were a board member. You switched over to an operational role as well. Can you tell us a little bit about what SafiSana is, when it started, and what do you think people should know about the project?
Great. I'm very grateful for this opportunity because that project is actually my baby, and I don't get tired talking about it.
Well, we can talk for a long time, so let's have a great conversation.
Great. All right. So SafiSana is the name. Actually, it's a Swahili word from East Africa. It means very clean. SafiSana means very clean. It is actually a sanitation project.
Okay.
And the power bit is just for us to get some income to sustain the sanitation project. So what we started to do was to clean the slum communities within Accra. So we started building facilities for cleaning up the beaches. We started building facilities to cleaning up the markets, cleaning up dilapidated public toilets and things like that. So we now have to take it a step further to find out what can we do with this waste that we are cleaning from the system. Then came the idea of waste to power, and it was just around the same time. SafiSana started in 2010, and then in 2011, this Renewable Energy Act was passed. So we took advantage of that and just developed a concept around it. So we built the plant, and then we process about 30 tons of organic waste daily.
Wow.
We put it in a huge biogas digester, produce electricity. So it's a mixture of solid and liquid waste goes through. So the digester produces the gas, and then we use the gas to power a CHP. That's a combined heat and power system to generate electricity. And I'm very proud to say that it is the very first grid connected biogas plant in Ghana and the second in West Africa. So we're the first to actually test the Renewable Energy Act from licensing to operation. So the act was passed, and then we had to go through it and see whether all the stages that was mentioned in the act was actually applicable. So we went through it from beginning to the end.
How long did that process take from the ideation of we have this identified potential to actually delivering energy to the grid?
Okay. So let me put it this way. So first of all, from 2010, we started to pilot the whole idea because it was new. There were no examples to copy from. So we just tried to break our heads together. So we built a miniature plant to test the whole idea. So we did that for about 3 years. And then African Development Bank and the Dutch embassy in Ghana actually saw our miniature plant, and they decided to fund the scale-up project. So they gave us a grant. Yes, so they gave us a grant, and we used the grant to scale it up to the current level. And this grant came to us in around 2013. And then we started putting everything together. Actual construction of the concrete works actually started in somewhere in the middle of 2015. But before then, we did a lot of paperwork, getting licensing, all that started from somewhere 2014. So if you're talking about the paperwork, started from 2014, 2016. So about 2 years getting licenses, getting all the documentation and permits, everything. But actual construction took 1 year.
I imagine that process must have been very complicated and challenging. It's first of a kind.
Very, 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 very challenging.
You're
it was new to everybody. All the people in the system, nobody wants to make a mistake. Nobody wants to rock the boat either. And it was really difficult. We had to go through, at a point, we even had to get a permit from the office of the president because we needed some, I would say, some agreements to be made, which permission could only come from the president himself.
Explain that. What type of conversation had to take place with the president saying we're going to take waste matter for energy and clean up the slums? It's a wonderful story, but I imagine even getting that meeting would be challenging.
Yeah, very challenging. So Africa Development Bank gave us a condition. Their funds can only go through public institutions, and SafiSana is a private institution. So the only way they could give us the funds was to sign a public-private partnership agreement with us, so that the whole project will have a public outlook. And signing that agreement for the municipality that we're partnering with, the permission has to come from all the way from the top. That's number one. Number two, we also needed some tax exemptions to bring in the equipment, the power generator that we needed to bring in. And getting tax exemption or for import tariff and all that, it was such a difficult process. We met parliamentarians along the line, we met ministers, and we ended up in the office of the president to sign the power purchase agreement and also to get the permission to get the import tariff waived for the equipment.
So for the African Development Bank, if you weren't trying to get money from them, then you would not have needed to get the approval from the president. But they put the requirement that it had to go through a public entity.
Exactly.
And that seems like it's almost an unusual win for you all. Congratulations on that front. And that development banks normally only invest in significantly sized infrastructure projects that are 100% proven. You're coming off from a pilot, from a proof of concept. What was that conversation like?
So at the time, I think we're just lucky. The whole thing started from it was happening just at the right time. Everything came together at the right time. So the time Ghana passed the Renewable Energy Act, then Africa Development Bank also had a fund. They call it Africa Water Facility. So it's a fund that the bank was managing. So this facility was actually also supposed to test this type of ideas on the continent. So they saw us as a pilot, even though we saw ourselves as a scale-up project, but they considered us as a pilot. And to be sincere with you, at the time we got that funding, there were about 23 similar projects they were funding on the continent, and only SafiSana became successful.
Why? What differentiated your team and your ability and your capability from the other 20 some odd endeavors?
So I think number one, we had a very motivated team, very young guys, very, very motivated team of people. And then the managers, or let me say the owners who are Dutch, were also really motivated, and everybody wanted to see this thing through. And also we learned a lot of lessons from the pilot we ran for close to 3 years. We learned so much So everything was just happening at the right time. So yeah, I would say that we're lucky on one hand, but on the other hand, I think it's also the great people we had around us, and we did a lot of consultation. We spoke to everybody that matter in the industry in Ghana. We spoke to a wide range of people. We did a lot of consultation, and we formed one significant thing that made the project really succeed in the area. In Ghana, there's a place, Accra, there's a place called Ashama. It's the biggest slum community we have. There are a lot of challenges working in that environment. But what we did was that we quickly formed a committee of local people. We brought them together, and we make sure they understood the project and the benefit community is going to get. So they were very, very, very helpful. They did a lot of charity work. They helped us to mobilize resources locally. It was great.
Do you have a list of all of the various stakeholders that you had to touch and convince and engage with? It must be hundreds of people.
Hundreds of people. It was one of the missions the bank set for us, so we surely have that list. It was the Africa Development Bank. We needed to report like every quarter, and this list was one of the biggest thing they were always looking for. So definitely that list is there.
After this is over, send me pictures of the launch party. I want to see the massive crowd at the facility. Now,
yes, it was great. The president himself was there. The president at the time visited us a few days ahead of the official launch, but on the day of the launch, we had 2 ministers who came with the whole community, with the local chiefs, and everybody was there. It was a great ceremony.
Oh, that's wonderful. Send me pictures. Yeah. Now, today, the recycling plant helps over 50,000 people.
Sure, I will.
Online, it says that there is 9,700 tons of organic waste treated per year, 3,600 tons of fecal waste treated per year, 600 megawatt hours of energy produced every year. These are fantastic statistics. Are you planning to replicate the model in other industries or other locations in the country?
Yes, definitely. Although I'm no longer with SafiSana, I still have a lot of conversations with them. I still help them on so many issues. And this is one of the conversations we are having currently. First of all, we are optimizing the efficiency of the plant. They are doing a number of things to make sure that the plant will can even take in more waste without necessarily expanding the size, but then taking more waste and then also employ more people, generate more power. That's one way. The second one is to definitely replicate this. Before I left, we did a number of feasibility studies, about 6 feasibility studies in different parts of Ghana. And I know for a fact that the guys there now are visiting some of these sites and getting ready to build the second one. The challenge we had is what I told you already. The law has been amended. We cannot just put this power directly on the grid as easy as the first one. So we are now talking to the electricity company of Ghana to see what we can do with that power, and they have to agree for us to hook it to the grid.
Okay. One more topic before we shift over to the German Development Corporation. You mentioned that the Dutch were the funders for this project in conjunction with the African Development Bank. Why are the Dutch interested in supporting the economy and supporting clean energy production in the country? What was their role?
Okay, so the Dutch have been in development work in Ghana for so many years. They've been in agriculture, they've been in energy, they've been in sanitation, they've been in a few other areas for several years. So this particular project only fell in line with one of their support areas. And the ambassador at the time, the name has just escaped me, was very enthusiastic about it. And the one who took over from him, who is currently in Ghana now, the ambassador who took over from the previous one, he is called, hey, come on, I've forgotten the name again. I'll tell you the names later. They are so much happy about this because once again, for most of the projects they have sponsored in Ghana, SafiSana continues to be a star. Mm-hmm. So all the time we get tons and tons of visitors, dozens of visitors, almost on daily basis, come and see what our money is doing, come and see how fantastic they are doing. And every day there were a lot of people, students are coming, researchers are coming, people are coming. And you know that the uniqueness of the project cuts across many sectors. There's sanitation in there, there's energy in there, and then we use the residue. After harvesting the gas, we use the residue to process organic fertilizer. Right? So we dry the effluent, dewater the effluent, get the dry matter, compost it, it becomes organic fertilizer. So there's an agriculture leg of the whole project. And then we even added something which is very unique to it, because we use part of the fertilizer to build a nursery. So we had a greenhouse where we're using the fertilizer to grow seedlings, vegetable seedlings, and the farmers are so happy because we're growing very high quality seedlings, and then they buy seedlings and grow. So there's a big business angle to, another business angle to the whole thing.
I feel like that's I feel like that's a bit of your personal touch on it, given that you've had 2 different stints.
Definitely.
So Raymond, you've been the executive director twice now at the Center for Agricultural Research and Development. That seems like a pet project for you, but I love the idea of it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
So SafiSana is doing unbelievably well. The Dutch are supporting it. Every single day, people are coming through the facility touring it. Next time I come to Accra, you need to get me a personal tour. I'd love to see you in person. But you made a challenging decision to leave, and you joined the German Development Corporation. What is the GDC? What's their role? Why are they in Ghana as well? What are you doing there? Get the listeners up to speed.
Okay, nice. So the German Development Corporation is another great international development corporation. It is one of the development outlets, foreign development outlets of the German government. So almost all the foreign aid that comes from the German government to Ghana passes through the German Development Corporation. Mm-hmm. And they are not only in Ghana, in several countries across the world, GIZ is represented. And in Ghana, GIZ is into agric, into governance, into energy, so many, health, and a lot, plastic waste, recycling, environmental issues. GIZ is supporting a lot of this. My project specifically that I'm working on is, and this is one of the reasons why I decide to even take up this appointment, is to actually create bigger access or better access for renewable energy. Because I see the work we did in SafiSana, if we don't have the market or the enabling environment, the likes of SafiSana cannot flourish. Mm-hmm. So we needed to ensure that there is good market for renewable energy, the laws are working. We needed to be sure that the policies are actually forward-looking. So this is what I am doing currently to help the business community, mm-hmm. as well as the regulators. The main regulator in this case is the Energy Commission of Ghana. Mm-hmm. And then, so the Energy Commission of Ghana has the powers to regulate the technical aspect of renewable energy. And then the Public Utility Regulatory Authority, we call them TURC, they mm-hmm. also have the powers to regulate the financial aspect of energy in Ghana. So these two forms a critical institutions that have all the powers to do proper regulations and all that. So this is what we are giving them a lot of support. And from the demand side as well, the Association of Ghana Industries are the industry people in Ghana. Mm-hmm. How do they position themselves to understand the changing trends in the market? This is my role in GIZ.
So where do those two organizations sit in the hierarchy of entities in the country? Are they below a ministry? Are they independent organizations? What's the framework?
Okay, great. So the Energy Commission is actually directly under the Ministry of Energy, but the PURC, who regulates the financial angle, actually reports directly to the Office of the President. So they are directly under the Office of the President, and then the Energy Commission reports to the Ministry. Yeah, so at a point the two converge anyway, but then yeah, this is the structure.
So you focus on the regulatory framework, you're focusing on policy issues, you're meeting with the individuals at the organizations who are setting the framework that allows renewables to operate and flourish in the country. Where do you think things are going, and what challenges have you identified that need to be addressed?
Okay, so first of all, some of the challenges have been addressed already. We participated heavily in the review of the Renewable Energy Act, which I mentioned already was amended in December last year. It was after we operated the act from 2011 to 2020. A lot of lessons have been learned, and then we realized certain things cannot work or are not working well. So we made a lot of proposals, and those things have been changed, thankfully, in the new act or the amended act. Some other challenges I see going forward. Number one, the fact that we have excess power in the system now is actually a challenge for the growth of clean energy or renewable energy, because the main power purchaser, which is the electricity company of Ghana, ordinarily will be open to buy power from all producers, but here is the case: they have a lot of power in the system they are not able to sell. So there is a challenge there for independent power producers, and we are looking at this also with the mind of having at least 10% increment in renewable energy by the year 2030. This is what Ghana, the target Ghana set for itself, that in 2030 we should have at least 10% increment in renewable energy production in Ghana.
Is that a goal, or is it a strict requirement that if it is not met, there's a penalty that enforces?
Well, it's a goal. It's part of the NDCs that Ghana set for itself, the national determined contributions arising out of the Paris Declaration. So this is a goal. Actually, the deadline was supposed to be 2020. And then in 2020, we realized that we're doing just under 2%. So the deadline was moved to 2030, and already 1 year is gone. And well, this is a huge challenge. So something has to really change. Otherwise, the way it is now, I don't foresee us making that in the next 10 years.
So as the electricity matrix changes and renewables begin to assume a larger share, is there dirty energy that is scheduled to be decommissioned, or if not scheduled to be decommissioned, will they just shut down and be forced to close based on price, based on regulation, based on something else? So where is that cross point of where existing entities start falling off and you think renewables will pick up the slack?
Will kick in. Okay. Yeah. So I don't think they will shut down, and I don't think they should shut down. What is happening is that the current government has a fantastic idea of building one factory in every administrative district we have in Ghana. We have about 274 districts in Ghana, and the government made a very profound statement that they want to build an industry in each of these districts. They have actually started. Some are working, some are still under construction and all that. Now, if all these things come into effect, there will definitely be a huge demand for electricity. Secondly, Ghana has or Africa has just started Africa Free Trade Continental Area.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this initiative is supposed to improve trade, intra-African trade. And we are hoping that this is going to bring a lot of competition among industry players. So people are going to definitely expand their businesses, and they will need a lot more power to do that. And thankfully, Ghana is even the one hosting the secretariat of the Continental Free Trade Area. And this is definitely going to have a lot of impact on demand for electricity. Thirdly, we also have a situation where our neighboring countries, namely Togo, Burkina Faso, and Ivory Coast, are power deficient. So some of the power is already being wheeled to these nations. The problem is that it is still far higher in terms of cost because of the production cost. This power can easily not be sold in those countries. And there are a lot of discussions going on to see how to bring down the price or how to do something about the price for the power to be absorbed by our neighbors.
Help me understand that a little bit better. So you've got Cote d'Ivoire to the west, you've got Togo to the east, and Burkina Faso to the north. Yeah. There is the organization, the West African Power Pool, which I believe that Ghana is a member, which says that we should be able to sell freely energy and electricity between the countries. Yeah. Your cost structure, it's more expensive energy than what's currently being constructed or produced rather in the other countries. But assuming it was brought down in price, are there transmission lines that are actually in effect and usable right now between the countries that are just underutilized because the cost is too high? Or is it both the cost is too high and there is no infrastructure to actually sell and deliver the electricity between the countries?
Yeah, I think you just put it right. The infrastructure is there, although some of it need to be revamped. Some of the equipment are obsolete, need to be retooled and all that. But the infrastructure does exist. We are already sharing a lot of power. These three countries, even including Nigeria, sharing a lot of power. The traditional generations we had from our hydro and from a few of our thermal plants are already being shared among the countries in the sub-region. So those ones go through the West Africa Power Pool, no problem. But the problem has to do with the new PPAs that we signed, and the prices at which we signed those contracts makes it very difficult to put into the power pool because of the cost. So number one, I know that one of the options that's available to government is to buy these plants from the owners and then run it as a nation. That's one
Is that an eminent domain type process where the government says we are purchasing and the seller cannot say no? They establish the price, or does it have to be a fair market willing trade where there has to be a willing seller? Because I imagine that getting somebody to forego a lucrative PPA is not an easy endeavor. In fact, I believe that the Ghanaian government renegotiated some of the PPAs forcefully after the prior administration came in. So what does that process look like?
Correct. So it's a mix. There are a lot of PPAs that were signed. So some of them, their nature just doesn't allow for any renegotiation. So you just have to leave it the way it is. Some of them, thankfully, can't be renegotiated. But I can tell you that from 2008, 17 or 18 thereabout, we started paying close to $450 million for power not used.
So there's a take or pay clause then that says even if we're not.
Exactly. So these are some of the challenges.
Were the PPAs that were executed of varying length and duration, or were they all the same terms? So we have a standard 5-year PPA, a standard 10-year PPA.
Say again, sorry?
Were the PPAs that were signed all the same length and duration? So 5 years, 10 years, 12, 20, whatever they might be? Or did each PPA have its own independent negotiation with different terms that makes it even more difficult for people to harmonize.
Yeah, I will be very sincere with you. I know for the renewable energies, they have a 10-year lifespan, but for the conventional, the thermal plants, I'm not very sure how long, but I know every PPA has their own lifespan, which makes it more difficult. Yes.
Okay. So let's end this on a high note. What is something that you think that we should have discussed today, but we haven't talked about yet?
Okay, so for me, for now I live and I eat renewable energy. It's all my conversations about renewable energy, but there's a very beautiful angle to the whole topic of clean energy. Yes, we are talking about producing clean energy, but there's also an aspect which seems to be lost in most of the conversation. That's energy efficiency, because a lot of the energy we produce is lost or is inefficiently used. So one of the aspects we are advocating for seriously is not just generation of more power, but the efficient use of more power. We have a lot of equipment in the systems that are power inefficient. We have a lot of air conditioners in the system, refrigerators in the system that are just wasting electricity. And we now have a lot of smart way of going around some of these things. And even by the mere nature of how companies or individual homes are wired, we can save a lot of energy, and by so doing, save a lot of money in the process. So as we are encouraging companies or industry to go renewables, we are also encouraging them to be energy efficient. And this is one of the ways. So some companies are retooling, some companies are rewiring their systems, some companies are changing their equipment, companies are putting smart meters in place, they're putting sensors in place, a whole lot of things just to cut down on their consumption. And that is an area that I'm very, very much passionate about as well, because it doesn't make sense to generate power only to waste it.
Well, Raymond, it seems like you have a wonderful challenge and opportunity ahead of you. On behalf of the Energy Impact Podcast, we could not leave this on a better note. Raymond, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Adam. I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and I look forward to talking to you another time. I'm so grateful.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Our leadership in science and industry, our hopes for peace and security, our obligations to ourselves as well as others, all require us to make this effort, to solve these mysteries, to solve them for the good of all men and for the progress of all people.